this is my YouTube channel, Natural Living with Sanana, where I share information, tips, and product reviews to help you live a more healthy, sustainable, natural, and non-toxic lifestyle. And in this video, I'm going to show you how to season a cast iron skillet. I'm actually going to use 2 different oils, and at the end of this video, you will know which oil works best. I've got 2 skillets here that need seasoning, so I'm going to season one with each of these 2 different oils that seem to be pretty popular, and by the end of the video, we will see which oil works best for seasoning a cast iron skillet. Now, there are lots of videos and blog posts out there about seasoning cast iron, and I watched and read several of them. I watched Cowboy Kent Rollins has a ton of information about cast iron skillets. He's like the king of cast iron skillets. And I watched his videos. I watched some seasoning videos by Serious Eats. Field Company has a how-to, and I found a blog post by Cheryl Cantor. It's a little bit of an older post, but it's all about flaxseed oil and the science behind seasoning a cast iron skillet and what we're trying to get when we are seasoning our skillets. So I took all of the information that I found in each of those videos and blog posts, and I'm going to season these 2 skillets here. The first one I have is a Staub cast iron skillet, and you can see in this one, I didn't actually take very good care of it from the start. I cooked spaghetti sauce in it, which is acidic, and you're not supposed to do that in your cast iron skillets. And I washed it with regular dish soap like Dawn. That just wore on the seal that this pan comes with. All Staub pans are pre-seasoned, so I just wore it down. I don't really think that it's rusted. It is a little bit brownish or reddish, and it needs a good seasoning, but it's a really great pan still. So I want to season this pan, and I'm also going to season my other cast iron skillet, which is this great 12-inch skillet that I have from Artisanal. And actually, I did a review a while back on Artisanal versus Staub. So if you're interested in that, make sure to check out that video. I'll put a link for that up here so that you can see that if you would like to. I also did a video on toxic cookware, and I talk a lot about cast iron and how cast iron is one of the best and healthiest cookware out there. Take a look at that too for more information about which cookware to use and which cookware is just unhealthy and not to be used. So I'll put a link for that one up here as well. So let's get right into it, guys. Let's get started with the seasoning. You can see that this cast iron, I actually washed it last night. So it's really clean and it's totally ready to go. It actually looks pretty good right now. And in a lot of the videos that I watched, it did say that the best way to season cast iron is just with regular cooking with good oil. So that's what I do with all of my cast iron. I also go over some of the care tips in the Staub versus Artisanal video, but basically you want to wash with a soap that isn't too harsh. I like to use the Camp Chef soap. It's made out of oils and it works really well to clean your pans and just keep them nicely oiled in between seasoning when you're washing them. So I highly recommend Camp Chef cleaner, and I will put a link to this in the description so that you can get some of this if you need to. So this pan is nice and clean and ready to go. I'm actually going to give the Staub pan a little washing right now, just to make sure that we get any little bits of rust off of it that might be on the bottom of the pan. So hang out right here. I'll be right back. I'm just going to wash this with my Camp Chef, and then we'll be ready to season. Okay, so I'm back with my Staub pan. I just washed it out, and I'm going to take this towel and go ahead and dry it out really nicely. So we'll get it good and dry and ready to go. And the next step is going to be putting it in the oven, and we'll turn the oven on to 200 degrees just to make sure that this gets completely dry. And I'm actually going to put both of the cast iron in there just to make sure, again, that they're both dry and they don't have any residual moisture in them at all. So we'll go ahead and put the oven on 200. Okay, racks are all moved, and now we're putting the pans in to the 200 degree oven. So we have one on the top shelf, one on the bottom shelf, and we'll close up the oven. And then we're just gonna leave them in there for 10 minutes just to make sure that they dry completely. So while we're waiting for the cast iron to dry, let's go ahead and talk a little bit about the oils. So there's lots of information about oils and which oil is best to use on your cast iron. I read in Cheryl's post about the flaxseed oil, and she swears by this oil and says that the reason that it works so well is that it is high in omega-3 fatty acids, or alpha-linoleic acid. And because it's high in that essential fatty acid, it actually helps with the polymerization of the fat that makes the nice silky smooth seal on your cast iron pan. So in the old days, they used to use linseed oil, so you'll see a lot of that as well. Flaxseed and linseed oil are actually the same thing. This is one of the popular oils that is used for cast iron seasoning. Now you do need to make sure that it doesn't have any other additives in it, like vitamin E or something else that is acting as a preservative. So it needs to be 100% flaxseed oil. And any of the ones that are refrigerated are going to be 100% flaxseed oil, more than likely, which this Barley-Ann's was. And you can see now that it's sweating because I have had it in the refrigerator. So the other thing about flaxseed oil is that it has a lower burn point, and that's what you want when you're seasoning. You actually want to get a little higher than the burn temperature because you want to release the free radicals, and that's what helps the polymerization to happen. And like I said, if you want more information about that, I'll put a link to her post in the description, and you can go and take a look at that and dive in deeply. Oh my gosh, you guys, there's a lot of information about the science behind sealing a cast iron, which I'm not going to go into here, but that's why I'm picking flaxseed oil, because it does have that lower smoke point and makes a great oil for sealing your cast iron pan. So I'm going to try this one out, and then I also read a lot of information about grapeseed oil. And I happened to have this in the cupboard and needed a use for it because I don't really use it for cooking. I would rather use olive oil, coconut oil, some of the other healthy oils, which again, I'm not going to get into that right now, but grapeseed oil actually has a pretty high ALA percentage as well and is considered more of a semi-drying oil like canola oil and some of the others. So I chose these two, and I'm going to use one on each of the pans with the same exact technique, and let's see which one comes out better. So I'm just going to check the clock now, and I'll be right back in just a second, and we'll take these two pans out of the oven and start with the first coat of oil. Okay, so now it's been 10 minutes, and I'm going to go ahead and put my oven mitts on. And you want to make sure that your oven mitts, this one is silicone, so it's actually made for barbecues and grills, and then this one is made out of cotton. And because we're going to be heating our pans up so much, it is important to make sure that we have cotton, or silicone is great, but nothing that has polyester that could melt when you go ahead and touch your cast iron skillets. So let's bring them out of the oven. Here's the artisanal pan, so I have that one out here, and let's go ahead. Now I've grabbed the Staub pan, and we'll set that one over here. topping up the oven because we do need to make sure that it stays nice and hot. We're going to put both of these pans back in the oven shortly. Now I'm going to use a cloth napkin, something that doesn't have a lot of lint. I had a few cloth napkins that have gotten stained with oil. These are nice cotton napkins, so I'm just going to cut this one so that we have a piece for each of the cast iron skillets. And I'm going to take the first section of it, and these shouldn't be too hot, but I'm still going to go ahead and use my pot holder. And I think on this artisanal skillet, I'm going to go ahead and use the flaxseed oil for the artisanal. Let's not forget which one we've used. I'll have it documented in this video here now. Now we're not going to put very much on. When you do put too much oil on, that's what can lead to the stickiness. So we're going to put a very small amount. Some of the things I read even said just 1/8 of a teaspoon. And I'm going to tip this up so that you can see it. So I put a little bit in there, and I'm just going to rub and rub. And it's almost going to look dry, like there isn't any oil. But that is really what you want, is a super, super dry skillet, almost like it doesn't have any oil in it at all. So I rubbed it all in. It's not even really very hot because we did only have it at 200, so I am able to handle it no problem. Now, some of the videos that I watched, they actually did talk about seasoning the outside and the handle. Well, this is a relatively new pan, so I'm actually not going to do that because I think it looks great already on the outside. And so look, see, I have seasoned it. I've put a little bit of oil in it, really, really dried it out. So this one is ready to go back in the oven. So I'm going to place it in the oven. I'm going to place it in upside down. And then we'll bring the Staub pan over, and I'm going to use the other rag for it. So I'm grabbing this rag, and I'm going to go ahead and use the grapeseed oil for the Staub pan. Now, Staub actually says that you don't ever have to season any of their pans because they do come pre-seasoned. But like I said, I didn't take care of this one super well, therefore some of the seasoning did come off. I do have another Staub pan that I've been taking care of very, very well, and I'm preserving that seal very nicely. And I do have to say that I love Staub. They are excellent pans. I think had I taken better care of this one, it probably would be doing better right now and may not need the seasoning. So I do recommend that you follow those instructions that they give you. So let's see. So you can see I just put a very small amount of oil. Again, I'm going to rub it around here inside of my pan. It's actually pretty good up the sides of this pan. It's just mostly at the bottom of the pan where it needs the seasoning. It's almost like you're buffing it out. At least that's what Cowboy Kent Rollins says. You're kind of buffing out the oil and you're really rubbing it into the pan. And a lot of videos that I watched, they actually said that a lot of the seasoning that happens just happens naturally when you're cooking and using your cast iron pans. So you can just do that and not have to season your pans. But mine, especially this Staub, I think really needed a new seal. So that's why I wanted to go through this process. And then the artisanal is a little bit more rough, and also some of that seal seemed like it had come off. So I feel like I needed to do that pan as well. So look at that. It's so nice and shiny. I've really, really rubbed it in, buffed it in. And now we're going to go ahead and put this pan back on the lower shelf, and we'll put it upside down. A lot of the websites and videos talk about putting a piece of foil underneath the pan in case anything drips, but you really shouldn't have that much oil on it that you are going to risk any sort of drippings. So let's go ahead and put it back in the oven now. I'm going to flip it over. You can see the seasoning is nice on the back, so I don't really feel like I need to do the back side. And I'm going to go ahead and put that on the bottom shelf, closing the oven. And then we're going to turn it up to 300. And then we're just going to wait another 10 to 15 minutes, and then we'll pull them out and just make sure that there is no pooling of the oil, no funny lines with the oil. We'll give it another buff, and then we'll put it back in the oven after that. So I'll be right back after about 10 minutes, and then we'll check our pans and see how they're doing. Okay, so we're back. It's been 10 minutes that we've had the pans in the oven at 300 degrees. And now we're just going to take them out, and let's make sure that they don't have any oil streaks or pooling of the oil or any of that, because we want to have a nice smooth finish on our seal. I'm going to pull out the Staub pan first. And let's see what the Staub pan looks like. Move my oils over here. It looks pretty good. I don't see any pooling or any streaks. I do see a few little dots here and there, but it actually looks quite good. I'm going to give it a little rub. It's looking really great, you guys. Hopefully you can see what it's looking like, but I think it looks really quite good. So I'm going to go ahead and place it back in the oven for it to finish the seasoning. And let's try the artisanal pan. Take a look at that. See what it looks like. Looks pretty good. I don't see any pooling or streaking there. Again, I'm going to take my rag just to be sure and just rub it around one more time, and then we'll put this one back in the oven as well. Okay, upside down on the top shelf. I'm going to turn it all the way up to 500. Most of the articles I read said to turn it up as high as it can go, and usually around 400 to 500. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it up, and then we're going to leave it for 1 hour. And we'll come back after 1 hour, turn off the oven, and then we're going to let it cool for a couple of hours just naturally inside of the oven. So once that process is completed, I'm going to come back to you and we'll go through the next cycle together. And this process is going to take several seasonings, several times of doing this seasoning. That means that this video is going to take me a few days to make. Once this process is finished, we'll wrap up the video and we'll see the end results. So this is phase 1. We're turning up the stove to 500 for this first round, and let's see how that goes. And then I'll come back to you after the pans are completely cooled down, and we'll check them and see what they're looking like. All right, everybody, I'll see you back soon. But in the meantime, if you're enjoying this video, give it a like, hit the thumbs up button, and hit subscribe and the notification bell so that you get notified when the next video comes out, and you can follow along with our journey here to live a more healthy, non-toxic, sustainable, and natural lifestyle. Good morning, everyone. Here we are again, back again in my kitchen. I have completed 1 round of the seasoning, and I have some pictures here to show you of each of the pans so that you can see what they looked like. Remember, the Staub has the grapeseed oil, and the artisanal has the flaxseed oil. So I'm putting up a couple of those photos for you to see how they looked after just 1 round. They're both looking quite good, but I decided to go ahead and wipe them with a layer of oil as I left them in the oven last night. So they do have a little layer of oil as we are pulling them out. I'm going to show that to you now, and we're going to get right into round 2 of the seasoning. So let's pull them out. Now remember, we let the oven cool down for 2 hours, so I was able to take them out last night and handle them just fine after they cooled. And we've got the stop out. So before I do anything, I'm gonna go ahead and give them a little wipe. So like I said, last night I did put a little coat of oil for them to sit with in the oven. You can see how that made them a little bit more shiny than when they first came out. So I'm just gonna wipe this down a little bit. And we'll go ahead and add another layer of oil, not much, but just a smidge more to make sure that it's all rubbed in all the spots and places where it needs to. So I'm just going to rub that in really, really nicely, really polishing it up. This rag is creating a little bit of lint. Now, that is one thing that you want to make sure of, is using a nice cotton cloth to buff out your pans with. That's something I learned from Cowboy Kent Rollins. He uses an old bandana to season all of his pans. So I didn't have that, but I'm just using this old cloth napkin that was stained. So that's looking pretty good. I think it's rubbed in nicely, and I think this one is ready to go. So let's go ahead and put this one back in the oven. I'm going to put it in on the top shelf again. And then we've got the next pan. This one is the Staub. And again, we did put a layer of oil inside of this one last night while it was sitting. I just didn't want to leave them without anything while we were waiting for the second round. So I'm going to take my rag again, just make sure that it's all smoothed out. I'm not sure that we need to add much oil to this one, but I will add just a dab. Now my rag should take up any excess oil that is left in the pan. And again, we want barely any oil. You almost will think there is none, but there really is a coating of oil, and that is what we want, is just a very thin coating to make sure that it does not get sticky. And then, look how good that looks. So good. So we'll put this in the oven. We've got our pans in the oven. We're gonna turn it up to 300, and we're just gonna let the oven warm naturally with cast iron in there. And we're gonna do that for 10 minutes, and then we're gonna come back and check out the pans and just make sure they don't have any pooling. Now this is what we're gonna do each time, and I will come back to you one more round of this, and then after that, I'm gonna just do this probably a few more times, and then I'll return to you at the end so that we can see the finished results. Okay guys, we're back, and I've left them in for 10 minutes as the oven is warming up to 300. I'm gonna put my mitts on again because they will be hot, and we're just opening the oven, checking each pan and wiping them down, looking for any drips or pooling that may be there. Again, we don't want drips or pooling because that's what leads to stickiness. So as we can see, this one looks really good. We'll just give it a little wipe down. This one is flaxseed. Give that a little wipe down just to be sure. Looks great. Putting it back in the oven. And now we're checking Staub. Staub looks really good too. Gosh, I'm so pleased with the results so far. Looking great. I'm gonna put this one back in the oven. I'll just give it one wipe for good measure, but looking great. so now I'm turning the oven up. I'm actually not gonna go all the way to 500 this time. I thought that was a little high and it really created a lot of smoking in our house. We had to keep all of the doors and windows open for that first round because it's really creating a lot of burning of the oil. I'm sure that is what causes the polymerization that needs to happen to seal and season the pans to create that finish that we want. But I don't think we quite need it that high. So I'm gonna go with 450 this time and let's see how that goes. And we're just gonna leave that for an hour and I'll set my timer. I will turn it off, I'll let the oven cool down, leave the pans in. That'll be round 2. And then like I said, we will do several more rounds of this. You'll see me back here after that. I will let you know exactly how many rounds I did, and we will be able to look at the pans and see whether we liked flaxseed oil better, grapeseed oil, whether they're both equal. So stick around, friends, and let's see how they turn out. All right, see you soon. Okay everyone, here it is, the moment we've all been waiting for. I started this video on Thursday and I've seasoned these pans 6 times to get to this end stage. I've got some shots for you of what the cast iron looked like after seasoning 3 and after seasoning 4 and 5. I didn't take one in between, but this is what it looked like after that. And here, we just did seasoning number 6 this morning. So these are still warm because the oven is still warm after I turned it off after the 1 hour. Let's take a look at these pans and see how they turned out. This is the Staub. So this is the first one that we did. And take a look at that. Doesn't that look amazing? It's got a really nice finish on it, a really good seasoning. And what I do want to do for you is I'm going to actually cook an egg in these pans here in just a second, and we'll see how they clean up and what it looks like, how it holds up with an actual cooking this morning. Let me just show you what the artisanal pan looks like. So that one came out really, really well also. I've got some shots of these as well that I took, and you can just see how nice the finish looks. It looks pretty amazing. The Staub is obviously a little bit of a higher quality pan. It's much smoother on the bottom of the pan, so it seems to take the seasoning much better than the artisanal pan, which is a little bumpy. Maybe I could have sanded that down a little bit before doing the seasoning, but otherwise it looks great and is much improved from the before. I'll just show you the before and the after again one quick time here so that you can see what these pans looked like, where we started and where we ended. So looking really good, guys. I use these 2 oils. I use the flax oil and the grapeseed oil. And I didn't really see much of a difference between the 2. I think the grapeseed oil works just fine, and it did not smoke and smell quite as much as the flaxseed oil. So for my next seasoning, I think I would just stick with that. And the other thing that I have to say after going through this for the last several days is that the oven temperature doesn't need to be higher than 450. I think 400, 450 is great. And if you follow the rest of the directions in this video, it turned out beautifully. It's a great process. It does cause a lot of smoking in your home. So I was a little concerned about the VOCs. I put my hood vent on and I opened the windows and made sure that we had good air circulation while I was doing it. So to me, that is a concern about this method of seasoning. I think I'll do another video at some point too with another method of seasoning. So stay tuned for that. I'll bring that to you in a little while. But for now, I had super good results with this seasoning process. And I think I've restored my pans beautifully. But the final test will be cooking an egg, and then we'll wash up the pans and we'll see how they look after cooking one item. All right, so here we go. I'm gonna turn each of my pans on to about medium high-ish, and then we're gonna let them warm up. That's an important step when cooking with cast iron, is let them warm up really well first. Okay, so now my pans are warmed up. I'm gonna go ahead and put a little of this ghee oil in it, just a little spray of it down at the bottom. I'm gonna do that in both pans. Again, when you're cooking with cast iron, you wanna make sure you have a good amount of oil in the pan before you start cooking. So then I've got an egg here. I let the oil kind of warm up a little bit so that it looks good. Here's my egg. Cooking an egg in cast iron is one of those things that is surefire proof that you've got a good seasoning on it, because eggs can easily stick to the bottom of a pan. I'm just going to show you what it looks like here. It's looking really nice. Moving around nicely in the pan. There's a little bit of sticking, but not much. Let's see how this one's doing. Whoa, that one's just sliding around in the pan, no problem. Lift that up and flip it over. Look at that nice egg. Let's see how this one's doing over here. It's looking really good. Nice fried egg here. I'm going to go ahead and turn this one off, and my egg is done. So I'm going to take it right out of the pan, put it on my plate here. And a little bit of sticking there, but not much. Whoops, getting egg all over my kitchen. So we're gonna clean this up here in just a second, and let's see how it looks after the cleanup. And this one looks great as well. Again, it's moving around on the pan just fine. A little bit of sticking right here in the corner, but actually sticking even less than the Staub pan. This one's almost done. I like my eggs over medium, so I like to let the yolk cook just a little bit in the center before it's fully ready. But I'm really liking this finish here. Look at that. Okay, I think it's done. I'm going to take this egg out of my pan here. It looks amazing. I'm going to go ahead and clean these up so that we can see what it looks like once I've done a first washing. Remember, I use cast iron Camp Chef cleaner when I'm cleaning mine, and if they're still hot when you're cleaning it, you want to use hot water. You don't want to put cold water in a hot pan. I normally let mine cool down a little bit before I wash it, but for the purposes of speeding things along with this video, I'll go ahead and wash them now, and remember, use warm water when you're washing it. Okay, I've washed both pans, and I'm just going to dry them out. Remember, you do want to dry the pan each time after you wash it. You don't want to leave it wet. And let's just see how it came out. There is a little bit of sticking on this still where the egg stuck. So I did use this little bamboo scraper in order to scrape those little dried on egg bits out of it. You can also use a little bit of salt in your pan. That often helps to get some of the stuck on bits out, but I do like these little bamboo scrapers. Those are nice. And let's see what this looks like once I have cooked on it. There is a little bit of residue from where that egg had stuck to it, but otherwise the seal looks amazing. It looks like a really nice seasoning. It's holding up to cooking. Let's check the other pan. Drying this one off too. And then I'll bring it over to you. Looks like there's a tiny bit of sticking right here where the egg was. Looks like I can scrape that right off though, and it looks really good again. So this was the flaxseed pan, the other one was the grapeseed. Like I said, I think they both work very well, and I'm happy with the results of each pan. We'll see how they continue to wear over time, but this is the results of flaxseed oil versus grapeseed oil seasoning. They both do well. We'll see how they hold up over time. But that is how you season your cast iron. Okay, friends, that's it. Thank you so much for hanging out with me through this whole process. I hope this video was helpful to you. If it was, then definitely hit the thumbs up and subscribe if you enjoyed this information. Hit the little bell so that you get the notifications when my next video comes out. I'm so happy to have you in this community, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. I wish you the very best of health. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.